And so do we here on First Take, and we are lucky to have the star of MSG courtside, fellow New Yorker, and
brother,
the one and only Spike.
Orange
That's all
and
I
blue.
gotta say.
Orange and
Spike!
Hey,
How could
I
you
love
wear
it.
that
Still
today?
loyal, always. A fixture
How's
courtside at
everybody
all
doing?
Knicks games.
we're great.
We're
man.
hanging in, Spike. How you doing?
day by day. That's all we can do, day by day. And I'm not talking about sports. I'm just talking about the world we live in.
That's right.
I'm very happy
One
to
day
say
at a
that
time.
I've had
I'm with you, sir.
two Pfizer shots. So
Nice.
Lucky,
Good.
congrats. I took my
Great.
first one Tuesday.
Good.
I took my first one Tuesday.
Getting them at the end of the month.
Good. We're seeing the light at the end of the
Let's
tunnel
go.
here. But I don't know about the light at the end of the tunnel. For your Knicks. Spike, what is your reaction to what happened to Patrick Ewing, of all people?
you know, we're one game over 500 going into the second half of the season. I see clear blue skies. I'm thinking we're going to make the playoffs. You know, we're going to have an impact. And then yesterday happens. And I'm not blaming this on Dolan, but there has to be something just wrong at Madison Square Garden. Can any of you imagine Derek Jeter being stopped entering Yankee Stadium?
Yeah.
Magic Johnson being stopped entering the Staples Center?
Yeah.
Michael Jordan, the GOAT, don't hate. Michael Jordan being stopped entering the United Center? WTF?
Yeah.
Yeah, Aquaman being stopped entering the ocean. I mean, like, it's unbelievable. The Pope at the Vatican. What's the analogy?
You stole that from me, Max.
Right.
Did I?
Yeah.
No, I
Pope
didn't.
at the Vatican. That was coming.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
My
Why you
fault.
why you stealing my stuff?
I said it in the first hour. I can't retroactively bite. Stop
Right.
that. It's an Spike,
I got
but
the
this
powers, though, man. I got the powers.
is Spike. This is what I'm saying. There's a poem about the Holocaust. First they came for the socialists, and I didn't say anything. Then they came, and then eventually they came for me, and there was no one left to speak. They already came for you. They came for you already, Spike. And you're still riding with them. They come from They came for Oakley. They came for you. Still riding with them, making excuses for them.
The Trinity.
They came for Patrick. The Holy Trinity of the Knicks of the last 40 years. Boy, John Starks better watch his back.
Well, I will say this. Listen, on a more playful level, all the people that Spike Lee mentioned, all of them won championships. We're still waiting for ours. It's been since 1973. Jeter, Jordan, guys like that, they won chips. That wasn't the case with Ewing. But on a more serious level, he means that much to Madison Square Garden. He should mean that much to New Yorkers. The only level of credibility we've had pretty much over the last 2 decades, or the last 3 decades, has been because of Patrick Ewing. And on a more serious note, where Spike you don't blame James Dolan, I do. And here's why. Because we ain't talking about the Knicks. We're talking about Madison Square Garden. We're talking about personnel there. They know who Patrick Ewing is. They knew who Spike Lee was and is. They knew who Charles Oakley was and is. The common denominator where you're alluding to a lack of respect and a lack of appreciation emanates from that man right there, James Dolan. And that's where I have the problem. If you held folks in high regard and you celebrated with a level of appreciation these individuals for what they meant to the franchise, everyone would march lockstep and nobody would give any problems. Think about that for a second here. There's no way we can go back to what happened to you, Spike. Don't tell me, and even you acknowledge, that was the security personnel there. They didn't want to bother you. They were compelled to do so.
Those are good dudes. Security at MSG, those are good dudes. They've been there for years.
And I like to say this. There was 2 brothers.
Yeah.
And they were in a jam.
Yeah.
They didn't want it. They didn't want to.
They didn't want to do that.
They didn't want to escort me out the garden.
Of course not.
Around the corner to come back in, knowing that I couldn't come back in because my ticket had been scanned already. They didn't want to do that. And I didn't want to do anything to get those brothers to lose their job. So it was a tight jam.
Yeah.
By the way, I'm not even making jokes, Spike. It doesn't take 2 security guards to walk Spike Lee out of the garden. If they're like, even that is like a show of force. That's like, I don't get it.
Max, let me give you a couple of tidbits and notes here. I remember when the Jonathan Sopranowicz of the world, who used to work for the New York Knicks, came rushing over because there was something that was going on with Oakley and stuff like that at the time. And I was at the Garden. And I'm standing in the tunnel, and he runs over towards me. You can't stand there. You can't stand there. Reporters before games walk around stuff like that. But somehow, some way, you know what? At the Garden, you got to get the hell out of there. You had players that are scared to communicate. Why? Because they feel like somebody might have access to their phone, their text messages, or who they're receiving phone calls from. This is the environment that existed at Madison Square Garden. I'm not talking about the Knicks. I'm talking about inside Madison Square Garden. It doesn't matter what's going on there. This is the level of just being petrified that people have had there in recent memory. There's one common denominator,
Dolan.
And that's James Dolan.
And Spike, Stephen A. brought it up. You brought it up off the top. People are starting to feel good. This is why I'm saying I'm never coming back to the Knicks as long as Dolan owns the team. Even when he seems to get out of his own way, finally, and put in a regime, and he's put in a lot of them, and this one seems to work right away. They've done an outstanding job. The culture's healthy. And all of a sudden,
my mindset, we're in the middle of pandemic. 500,000 Americans, fathers, mothers, sisters, relatives, friends are no longer here. So my mindset is, look, that stuff that happened before, I'm peace and love trying to move forward. The last thing I wanted to do was be involved somehow with Dolan again. And it happened. It wasn't my fault. Now the whole thing has happened again. I thought this story would be dead between me and Dolan.
It's like Al Pacino.
Now added to me and Oakley.
It's like Al Pacino and The Godfather. They keep bringing me back. They keep bringing me back. Listen, the reason why I'm protective of the Knicks right now is because I think Leon Rose, Worldwide William Wesley, Scott Perry, Tom Thibodeau have done an outstanding job of getting you to focus on what the Knicks are doing. They're competitive almost every night. They fight, they scratch, they claw, and they're winning just as much as they're losing, if not a little more now. They're one of the elite defensive teams in the game. You don't get fast breaks on them. You don't shoot a bunch of threes on them. They're moving in the right direction. But somehow, some way, something that happens in Madison Square Garden, there's always something that infiltrates the proceedings and messes with whatever positive headlines the New York Knicks provide you. And it always comes from nonsense like this. It's ridiculous.
The Knicks,
it's ridiculous.
The Knicks.
I'm not jumping off the Knicks bandwagon, though, because there's no reason to jump off. I wouldn't do that. But Dolan's getting on my damn nerves because he can resolve all of this. Oh, no, he really could.
Let me tell you something. You and Spike,
both of y'all.
Hold on, Molly, real quick, both of y'all.
Yeah.
He's not getting on your nerves. There's no breaking point. There's got to be the straw that breaks the camel's back eventually, right? Like, for me, when I was like, that's it, my hands are washed of them, it was Oakley. It's like, no, I really can't mess with them anymore after that. And Spike, it was you, and now it's Patrick Ewing. What does it take? You realize all you need to do in New York, as the Nets just showed, is just for a year or two, show people you have a healthy culture, and then New York sells itself. You're going to get the biggest superstars in the world. Why would anyone come to this franchise now? Just like they look like they're turning a corner. Look what they just did.
What do you want me to say?
Can I ask you what I asked? Let me ask you what I asked the guys earlier, because I tried to play devil's advocate. They shut me down, but let me try to do it again here. What if it's this young kid who's not a sports fan or doesn't know who Patrick Ewing is, or is told that if someone doesn't have an ID, you're going to lose your job? You mentioned the pandemic. You know, a lot of people, there's all different issues going on. People need to earn a paycheck. What do you say to that?
Molly, may I tell Spike my answer before he answers? May I tell him what I said to you earlier?
Yeah, however you guys want to do it.
Spike,
Yo, go ahead, Stephen A. Go.
When Molly asked that earlier, I said to her, if it were an isolated incident and it was just a young kid, Patrick Ewing would not have reacted that way. That's not who he is. He would not have gone on the podium in a post-game conference and highlighted it the way that it was if it were an isolated
incident. Win over Villanova, too.
That's right, particularly with just one kid that was probably born after he was playing. Patrick Ewing did this because he talked about a multitude of experiences he's been having at Madison Square Garden, and he felt the need to speak up for it because it's not one isolated incident by some young kid. Patrick Ewing wouldn't do that. Go ahead, Spike.
Well, when I read about this thing, I called Patrick up. I got his number.
Okay.
Speed dial.
Yeah,
Patrick, my brother, was hot. The indignity, the disrespect. Even if I'm a young kid born after Patrick, but, was with the Knicks, glory years, he's 7'2". And you tell me there's nobody in the vicinity if Patrick's going through the metal detector to say, yo, come here. That's Patrick, let him through. How does that happen? I don't understand it. As I said before, that's not going to happen at Yankee Stadium. It's not going to happen.
Spike.
There has to be some common sense.
Spike, in going back to She's Gotta Have It, your character was arguing with another character about Bernard King versus Larry Bird and everything. That's all we had as Knicks fans back then, was Bernard King. Once he got hurt, we're talking about like Rory Sparrow. Until Patrick Ewing came to the Knicks, they were a laughingstock. The day Patrick Ewing showed up, we expected to go to the playoffs every year. We expected to make runs in the playoffs, and usually did. We expected a championship and almost got there. They actually didn't do a good enough job surrounding him with enough offensive talent. But Patrick Ewing kept up his end of the deal. Remember, when he was in college, he was just supposed to be a great defensive player. He turned out to be great both. He set the tone. He worked hard. He led by example. What could New York possibly want? Patrick Ewing and Charles Oakley, that was his crime partner. Those two guys held it down for New York in the 80s. Yankees weren't winning anything in the 80s. The Knicks held it down on a nightly basis in Madison Square. Patrick Ewing and Charles Oakley, and there was Spike Lee courtside. And all three of you are harassed at the Garden?
Can I take my glasses off?
Yeah.
Look, I'm laughing, but it's sad. It's so sad. It's sad.
And it's also arrogance, because guess what? When you mess with folks, particularly at Madison Square Garden, you know why? Because you know folks are coming no matter what, as you point out, Max. And I'm not talking about just the Knicks. I'm talking about the business of Madison Square Garden, the Mecca, whether it's hockey, whether it's basketball, whether it's concerts or other things. You've got
Billy
a lot
Joel.
of action. You got a lot of action coming at Madison Square Garden. So you, Dolan, you're always going to get your money. And as a result, you don't pay a price for creating this kind of environment that could potentially alienate folks, because there's always a line of people willing to come to the Garden.
Well, except the Brooklyn Nets now changed that equation a little bit. It changes the equation a little bit.
People ain't going to stop
coming to
the Knicks, Max, not New York.
Listen, if Dolan's in talks to buy the Hall of Justice, Superman's going to need to show up with an ID. He can't. I don't know what the analogy is, but it's unbelievable. And then Spike, he's 7 feet tall. You think you're in a basketball arena and a 7 foot tall dude who everyone who sees him is like, oh my God, it's Patrick Ewing. If security's really harassing him,
what if the kid thinks he's going to lose his job, Max? What if he's worried he's going to lose his job and he's just directed to do so? And
I agree with you, Molly. Why would he? Well, I'm not blaming security.
So again, Molly, that you're saying, it's coming from the top. Are you not saying that?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
That's what I guess I'm saying by asking that question. Yes, I am. Yeah, that's the rules that are being told to be enforced.
This was a directive.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I hear you.
That's where I'm going with it.
It was a directive.
Why do you think, Spike, I have a question. Why do you think, sometimes Dolan's behavior doesn't add up to me other than he wants to flex his muscles. Even by making the wrong decision, at least he's exercising his will and having some power, displaying it. What is the upside in doing that to Patrick Ewing, in doing that to Charles Oakley, in doing that to you? The three ambassadors of the team's glory days in the last several decades. What's the upside? Why do it? What's the motive?
I guess because he can.
Yeah. Plain and simple.
All right.
Because he can.
Yeah, drop the mic. We'll leave it there. Spike's going to stick around with us, guys. Let's get into a couple more NBA topics while we have him. We'll start with this one. So this week, Pelicans coach Stan Van Gundy appeared as a guest on the Intersection with Jason Page podcast. And when discussing NBA priorities, Van Gundy said the following, quote, "The one thing I will criticize the league office and other people who say safety is our number one concern. No, it's not. It's your number two concern. Your number one concern, that's making money. Your number two concern is, while we're making the money, let's try to keep everyone as safe as we can. Let's just be honest about that." Max, are these Stan Van Gundy comments a big deal or no big deal? Max, up first.
I mean, look, he's telling the truth. It's no big deal because even Stan Van Gundy is a man. Like, he'll tell you what he thinks. He's not afraid. And he's just, it's not like Stan's sitting there going, listen to this profound thought I have. He's like, hey, everybody, it's a business. You know, it's like getting mad at a shark for eating something. It's not a moral question for a shark. That's what a shark does. A business, by definition, all it is making money. That's all a business cares about. And then you have, even in terms of like the good outreach they do in the community, sure, that's about the people in the business who actually care about that, but it's also very much about the bottom line because we exist in a culture where you at least have to show public facing that you do care about it because that also affects your bottom line. Of course, the number one priority is making money, and I don't think Stan thinks he's making a big deal. He's just stating what's obviously true.
Well, that might be true. Well, first of all, what he's saying is on the money. But let's not act like it's a bad thing. The fact of the matter is that people ain't playing for free. They ain't working for free. There's an economy. You know, one of the things that I've religiously brought up, and I've been bringing this up from day one, I said safety of human beings obviously is paramount. We all get that. But you know something, Max? I have a mortgage. I have bills in my home and what have you. Regardless of what was going on during this pandemic, there was never a month went by that I didn't receive those bills. I never saw one company say, COVID-19 is going on, you don't have to pay. They're coming for their money. So when you talk about people's quality of life, when you talk about people's abilities to feed their family, keep a roof over their head, and things of that nature, we can't ignore that reality. And so, obviously, when we're talking about the NBA, we take into account the millions of dollars some of these players, all of these players are making, basically, and we take into account what the coaches are getting paid and all that stuff. What we ignore repeatedly is the thousands upon thousands of people these sports leagues employ. And we can't ignore that. I'm not saying that you shove aside safety. I'm not saying that you don't prioritize the health of human beings and things of that nature, Spike. What I'm saying is, let's stop acting like it's a crime to pay attention to economics as well. Because bills got to get paid. That's just the reality of the situation. And when folks speak, like Stan Van Gundy is I love Stan Van Gundy. He's incredibly honest. I wish they do a better job defensively because last night they got blown out by 30 by Minnesota, which is a different subject for another day. I mean, damn.
Different subject.
That's a different subject.
He wishes too.
That's a different subject. But I applaud and respect his honesty. But Stan Van Gundy ain't coaching for free. The NBA, NFL, Major League Baseball, National Hockey League, and everybody else in between have a right to want to pay attention to the economics when nobody's playing for free. Listen, the NCAA tournament is going on, and Jay Billis comes on my show yesterday, Stephen A's World, on ESPN Plus, and specifically states there will be an NCAA tournament. The NCAA made that very clear. They said, because we got rights to fulfill. We have no choice. The NCAA tournament will march forward. Why? Economics. Let's grow up and stop acting like, oh my God, somebody is so wrong for paying attention to that. When you getting a check too, That's all I'm saying.
Spike?
Well, we live in an American capitalist society,
Yeah.
and money talks, BS walks. And what's important, and what I'm going to say right now, is not really talking about the NBA, but there's been many, many cases where decisions were made in favor of the money, and people died. I mean, that's not a news flash. The cigarette industry knew way, way back what cigarettes did. They hid it. And that's not the only example. Money, I mean, we live in a country where people will get on bended knee and kneel before the altar of the almighty dollar. And if people gotta die, that's the cost of doing business.
Well, let me say
It's
one
not
thing.
new.
Let me say one thing about that. Stephen A., you brought it up about, and Spike, you sound like you're saying, hey, this is not new, and maybe it's not the greatest thing, but this is the truth. And in the cigarette company case, they also added nicotine, which is addictive. So not only do they know it's killing you, they're having you to take more and more of it because they're trying to make money. And I bring up the point that corporations, businesses are in the business of, that's their existence, is about making money. That's what they do. Getting mad at them for it's like getting mad at like a shark for eating. Like that's what it does.
But it's how you make the money, though. That's the difference.
This is what I'll say about what Stephen A. brought up. How you're kind of defending it in a way, Stephen A., like, hey, they have an economy. We like to think that we believe human life has infinite value, but we don't. People generally don't. If you hear about a crash on a car, a train, a plane, and you hear 2 people die, you feel worse than if 1 did. You know, and that means that it means that you can have more tragedy than a single human life. Infinity times 2 is still infinity, and yet you feel worse. It's a bigger tragedy, meaning we don't believe each life has infinite value. And if people don't think that corporations even do cost-benefit analysis or governments in terms of human life, you're crazy. That absolutely that was done. I think most of the issue with the pandemic, for example, is people believe the previous administration, they didn't agree with their calculation. They thought, no, they're placing too great an emphasis on the economy, not a great enough emphasis on human life.
I totally agree.
Yeah, but not that we all believe that we should take no risks at all in order to have an economy.
I don't disagree with anything you or Spike is saying. I'm just saying there is a reality that is inescapable.
Real talk.
Because of it being perpetual, that we got to stop acting like we're above. The fact of the matter is that, Max, you and I never took a day off when the pandemic hit. Do you know that? When sports stopped, when the NBA was canceled March 11th, Spike, Max Kellerman, myself, and Molly Kieran was on this airwaves every day.
Doing work.
We were doing work and took pay cuts. But let me be very clear. We got something. We got enough to pay our bills. It ain't an accident. You understand? I'm just saying, let's not be phony about that. And I'm not accusing Stan Van Gundy because I love Stan Van Gundy. I'm not accusing him or anybody else of being that way. I'm just saying this is the world we live in. Let's not acting like we don't know it. And we're not participants in it and to some degree enablers of it.
Yeah,
we are.
The question is not whether or not we participate. Obviously, everyone does. The question is the degree to which we participate, how we value the risk versus the reward and all of that.
Okay, I'm with you on that one.
Yeah.
I'm with you on that one.
Guys, we got time for one more. I want to do this. So a recent article about a monotonous rhythm to the game, and others say that it has distorted the scoring system. Adam Silver joined Mike Greenberg's radio show yesterday, had this to say.
We're constantly looking at tinkering at the game. We've moved the three-point line. As you recall, we moved it in once, then we moved it back out, then we moved it to a slightly different place on the floor. I think as the caliber of the shooting has gotten better, I mean, my early days in the league, everyone used to complain there was too much dunking. And that we had a lot of great athletes in the league, but they weren't skilled in the way that you see a lot of these players now. So are we at the right balance? I'm sure there may be some adjustments we can make. I mean, I think, again, there's so much great about the game right now, but the three-point line in particular is something we'll continue to look at.
Stephen A., where are you on this? Do you think there's a problem with the three-point line?
Not really. I mean, you could make the argument that it's a problem. I would tell you it depends on the team. I would tell you, if you're looking at the New York Knicks, hell yeah. If you're looking at the Golden State Warriors, the Utah Jazz, a couple other teams, I would tell you no. I mean, it depends. We're not complaining. Let me ask you a question. When Steph Curry took the league by storm and was raining threes, did we complain? Only time I ever saw Spike Lee complaining about threes was when Reggie Miller hit him. I never saw him complaining when John Starks hit him. Okay? So I mean, excuse me, wait a minute now. Shooting is a part of the game. Now, if you want to change a rule, for example, let's just say when Wilt Chamberlain was dominating the league because he was a foot taller than practically everybody else, you can understand why the rim needed to be a bit higher. You understand? Or you wanted to outlaw Duncan because, I mean, my God.
Yeah, but what about when Lou Alcindor went to UCLA and they outlawed Duncan?
That's right. The Lou Alcindor at UCLA. But check this out. But check this. And if you wanted to sit up there and say, here's the only modification I would consider about the three-point shot, y'all. Move it back 6 inches to a full foot. That's it. Make it a little bit harder.
Well,
that's all.
This is my
outside of that, please.
They'll just start
leave
learning
it right
how to hit
where
that. Here's the problem. The most efficient way to play a sport is not necessarily the most pleasing, right? In MMA, they start, it turns out, just grappling and little maneuvers. So eventually the UFC said, no, y'all got to stand up. You can't just spend the whole time on the floor. They just changed the rules. And is this product a little monotonous with the threes? Yes, it is. Let's not look. When Steph was doing it, he was the only one doing it. Now everyone's bombing threes all the time. Some dude's taking 10, 11 threes a game. Teams taking 50 threes in a game. It's making the product worse. They should figure out a way to fix it. I would suggest this. Why is that the only shot worth 3 points? And why is the points always why is it always awarded by distance? Why not have certain areas, even in the interior or in the mid-range, worth 3? Maybe if you have a defender on you or something like that. There are ways to tinker with it so other shots are also worth an extra point or have extra value so that you get the kind of game you want to see. I don't love this with just 3, 3, 3, 3, 3. That's not the basketball I grew up with.
Well, I think it should be a three-point play, but a sky hook. Why has no one, who else does that? And I asked Kareem this. He says, even on the Lakers, he was trying to, tell some of the centers to show them how to do it, and no one wants to do the sky hook.
No. Magic did it. Had the baby hook.
Yeah, I mean, Magic and Kareem play together, though.
Of course.
I don't give a damn about no three-point play for no sky hook. Spike, what's
Be
wrong
fresh.
with you?
He knows Spike's right.
Okay, so what? That's just a move. I mean,
so what? Why not give an extra point for a move?
No, you shooting 24 feet away from the basket. That's something entirely different. What's wrong with you?
Give an extra point for a dunk.
That's ridiculous.
Spike Lee, we'll see you courtside. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for showing us what loyalty really is.